Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corey Ruth, Media Relations Associate with IEEE USA. I'll be your host for the webinar this afternoon. I'm very excited to have our host who I'll introduce in just a moment. As a reminder, we create this programming hoping that it's valuable, relevant, and of interest to you. So we will be sending a short survey to all registrants after this event and would love your feedback. We do value your opinions and appreciate if you could take just a few moments and share your thoughts. We get our content ideas sometimes from you and always strive to make better and better content, and your feedback is very important for that. So our presentation today is going to be all I needed to know about project management I learned planning a wedding. Presentation is going to be today by Diane Bowen Collier, and I will introduce her here. Definitely look forward to this presentation. It's an interesting intersection of the two things, but I mean, what bigger project than a wedding with so many moving parts, so many things that can go right or go wrong. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And welcome, Diane, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Corey.
All right, so I will remove
So,
myself here and let you begin.
all right. Good afternoon, and I'm hoping to give you some perspectives about project management. Early in my career, I was joined a PMO. That was probably before PMO was a common term, and so we were working to support power plant construction. So they needed somebody who was into working on software, and so that's how I came into it, from system planning into the PMO. An assignment I had during that time, and I was planning my wedding, was to assist in building a schedule for completion of a nuclear power unit. So to take that on, I said, at least give me a phone during the lunch hour, and I'll bring my phone book, and I'll get this wedding planned. So, of course, I've learned a lot more about project management since those days. But using an example of wedding, I wanted to give you an opportunity to think about when you organize an event. It might be a conference, it might be an IEEE meeting, that it would give you an insight into the possibility of project management and project challenges. So, how do projects begin? Um, when you work in an organization, they may have some different processes by which a project is formed. Uh, Perhaps a proposal, like or a business case. They may have a formal uh, template for creating business cases, and uh, a process that management goes through to select those. So, like at where I work today in municipal government, we have a formal project intake process where our BAs work, our business analysts work with the various departments to see what things they're going to need in the upcoming years. It could be a business growth opportunity. Uh, in this day and age when things are changing so fast with technology, you want to plan for those and get ahead of it. Could be a regulatory response. I worked on a project for deregulation in electric utilities in Texas. And then there's my probably least favorites, what I call shiny objects. Someone went to a conference, and at that conference, they saw something really cool and said, I need that for my organization. But that may not have been vetted yet. So um, that's one of those things you kind of have to watch for. And there's lots of other ways that a project comes together. But think about projects, programs, and portfolios, just for a few definitions. A project has a beginning and an end. It has a start and then a finish. It doesn't continue on and on. Now, program those continue. Those may have multiple projects involved. Like if you have a software product that uh, multiple departments use, and you're continually doing maintenance and upgrades to it, that could be a program, or it might be multiple products. Now, your portfolio would be your catalog of projects and programs. Now, if you go to my wedding example, the wedding is a project. The marriage is a program. It's something that continues. My personal portfolio would be the marriage, work, home projects, volunteer projects, potentially children. Just to give you a way to think of it that you can personalize. Project intake considerations. Um, when you are provided with a list of projects to take in, you want to consider the value. Some projects will start and die, and it's okay because maybe that's what they should do. Maybe that project shouldn't go forward. So you really have to look at the value for the time and and money that it takes to do the project. Of course, there's always budget considerations. Does your organization have the funding for this project? Organization support commitment is sometimes something I find that slips. Um, if there's requirement for particular people within the organization, perhaps to do testing or to have input on requirements and really work as part of the project team, the department needs to be able to provide that support so that your project's successful. And sometimes it's kind of like you might think that project's going to be thrown over the wall to the organization, to the PMO, and they'll get it done. But the PMO needs the support of the project owners. And you also want to consider the impact on current portfolio. Do we have the bandwidth to take on this additional work? Of course, your stakeholders going to be very important part of your project. You can tell that sometimes it might not go so well, but stakeholders are individuals and groups who may be impacted by the project. They could influence the project directly or indirectly, positively or negatively. So these are the folks that are going to support the project, are going to be involved in the project, are going to receive the results of the project. So you want to engage them for project success. If you don't engage them, well, they might come after you. That's my joke. I'm sure you're laughing. Stakeholder engagement really relies heavily on interpersonal skills. You'll need to be proactive to work with them. Of course, there are things you want to exhibit: integrity, honesty, collaboration, respect, empathy, and confidence. Uh, as you're working with them, you want to be straight with them, respect their time, understand their feelings, because sometimes they may not feel good about something in the project, or they may feel great about it. But you want to take that in and be aware. You want to be aware and take in ideas of others. This is not a one-way street. It goes both ways. Uh, you want to be open to other perspectives. Perhaps something needs to be done a different way than we've been doing it before, and so we need to engage that perspective. We also want to build solid relationships. Not only is the relationship going to continue through the project, but it's going to, the project completes and for future projects. So please maintain solid relationships. In my wedding example, who are my stakeholders? Well, of course, there's the bride and groom. That's the only truly required. But the wedding's going to mean a lot to parents and family. Also, your closest friends or your wedding party also could be part of your uh, wedding project. Of course, you have service providers. You're dealing with photographers, venues, caterers. Uh, who knows what else you might decide to have special as part of the wedding? But those service providers are part of your stakeholders. Of course, there's your friends and your parents' friends. I remember my mother-in-law here in the sort of white dress. She had lots of friends. I think she had more friends than I did at the wedding. And we uh, had to deal, especially my father was in a wheelchair, so we had he as a stakeholder we had to make him comfortable with how he would go down the aisle, and we made some special arrangements that were a little different for him. My mother, as a stakeholder, she always wanted to have long gowns at the wedding, but Emily Post says that a wedding has to be at 7 before you have the long gowns. Well, I don't care about Emily Post, but my mother did. So for a 4 o'clock wedding, I said, we'll do long gowns because that's what we want. So each one had their own special need. Uh, Me and the groom, we just needed a beautiful wedding with our friends. Looks like we got that. So, stakeholders in a business project example is your sponsors and executive leadership, which you'll meet with regularly. Your team developing the product or service, and that team could be cross functional and probably will be. So, they may be from multiple departments or multiple locations. So, then there's the users receiving the product or service. They could be within your organizations or external to your organization. It may be the public. Then there's your consultants and providers that are engaged to aid in developing the product. You want to be a close team with them as well and consider uh, them a one team with you. There may be others that you find later that are impacted by the results of the product or service that you'll want to consider as stakeholders. Of course, for stakeholders, there's lots of communication, so you need to have a plan for communication. A key skill in project management is communication. That's what a project manager will spend a tremendous amount of their time doing. They'll each project has different communication needs and requirements. A plan would include what are the communications you need to have, and what is the purpose for those communications? Who's going to lead that? And who is going to be the audience for that? How often? What is the frequency for that communication? And what's the method? It could be email, could be virtual and or in-person meetings, could be collaboration tools, could be social media. Uh, we have lots more options than in the beginning uh, when I was planning my wedding. So, communication plan for wedding example. So there are regular phone calls and meetings with the groom and family to work on details. Of course, in first person and phone meetings with vendors, venues, and clergy to select products and services. It may include different parts of your family or wedding party. Then there's the gatherings with the wedding party members to make sure they know where they're supposed to be, when they should be there, so that they are not late to the party. Then there's the invitations. That was a big thing. Today's weddings might have been a little different. I had a ginormous invitation that cost me extra postage, of course. But today I see some weddings that it's announced on Facebook. So either way, it's what works for the for the team. Then also you have announcements to the public, pre and post wedding. You want people to know that's coming and then that it's happened, that you're happy about it. Now then, for a business project, you'll have regular status reports available to stakeholders weekly, probably weekly, via email or online. Um, that would be led by the project manager. You may have team meetings weekly to get the team on a level set on what's the current work and future work. Are there issues? Talk about next planned steps, and that would typically be led by the project manager. Less frequently, you tend to have sponsor and executive leadership meetings led by the PM. Now, in some projects, like one of my current projects, there may be multiple PMs. I work with Accenture as a support group for my current project, and so there's the vendor has a PM, and then I work on the city side of things, and so the two of us work together and may share the responsibilities of leading some of these meetings. Of course, there are workshops. Those might be led by business analysts, subject matter expert, or consultants. Not necessarily everything is led by the PM. Then there are logs to keep up with risk you discover, issues, lessons learned. Probably led by the PM, but you would also have contribution by the team. You could do that in many ways. If your project is something that's going to be available to the public, you may want to have press releases, or you may have some form of portal that you're releasing to your community that works like in our case, that works for the city. We have a portal, and so when something important comes up in the project, we may choose to release it on that portal, sort of like a press release. Do need to have some common terminology. A lot of times, some of us in tech tend to speak IT, and not everybody knows exactly what we're saying. So we need to keep that in mind and share information what some of that terminology is. You may need to have a glossary for your team. I know my current project, one of the glossaries is just around what different dates mean. What is an effective date? What is a service date? So here's our poor friend here who wants to legalize noodling, and his terminology doesn't exactly fit with this lady. And so she let him know how she felt about it, and so now he's using a term that he feels clearer of: barehanded fishing. As you probably have noticed, projects have lots of meetings. And running a meeting is a skill. Meetings should have agenda or a defined purpose. Keep the participants on track respectfully. Typically, the agenda helps a lot in keeping participants on track. Also good to have lots of different voices in the meeting. Unfortunately for this particular meeting, you've just mostly got mine, but I typically like to, and I use that word too many times, I like to have other people speak during the meeting, talk about their own status rather than me parroting what they've developed. So I think that keeps it more engaged and lively. Icebreakers are good. It's good to have some fun in meetings and teamwork. So sometimes we come up with just a question for a group that maybe what's your What's your favorite fast food? That could be enough to get people talking so that we learn a little bit about them. And knowing the people on your team always, I think, helps you work with them. If you don't need a meeting, cancel it. That's sometimes an exciting thing for people because when they're engaged in projects and their regular work, it's like a little bonus. And your in-person meetings that are good because they develop connection. People get to work together and interact with each other. I notice in the beginning of a in-person meeting, people are talking. They're uh, getting to know each other. Sometimes in the virtual meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, there's just a silence. So there's your little bit of difference. But sometimes we work with people all across the states and the world, uh, you're going to have virtual meetings. You can make effective use of chat. Uh, I find that's good for, and the raised hand and all those various tools are very helpful. And you can record easily on some of those platforms. A lot of times, if everybody turns on the camera, you might not have bandwidth, so you may have to ask people to turn off the camera. But it's really nice to see people um, with the camera on occasionally. Uh, Part of etiquette is muting when you're not presenting. And if you are leading the meeting, it's helpful to know how to mute others. Sometimes they don't realize that the noise in their background, or they may be on a phone, and sometimes it's a little more difficult for them to work with the controls. And when you're leading a virtual meeting, be ready and have all your materials logged in so that you're ready to share as soon as it's your turn to do that. Now, team organizations are very tailored to fit the specific project. Uh, a lot of times, a project may be organized sort of like a org structure that you would see in any org chart. It can be a little bit like that. Teams, as they work together, may develop their own culture, which can be a positive. You want to define roles and responsibilities of each member. You can have several leads for specific pieces of the project. Um, the team includes the internal people and the outside resources, the employees, the vendors, others who are in close association with the project. There may be multiple standing committees as part of the project. Now then, a little bit about an agile project. Things shape up a little bit different. You have your Scrum team, and your Scrum team is self-organizing, so they will determine who the leads are for their piece of work and who's doing which parts of work. Then the Scrum Master has a duty to keep up with the progress, and what they do is they will lead the daily meetings. Uh, Usually, there's a daily meeting where the team will go through what they accomplished, what they're planning to accomplish, and what are the impediments that they might have, or what are the issues they may be facing that they need help with. Product owner is responsible for success, so they're going to be guiding um, some of the decisions about the project. The Scrum Master and the product owner are going to be accountable to the business owner. So they'll be a communication conduit to the business owner. And then business owner has responsibility for the stakeholders out here. Agile teams are self-organizing. As I said, they make a lot of their own decisions. So this is kind of my wedding idea of what um, what a regular project team that's not agile would have. Notice everybody's wearing the same dress. They're wearing the same dress because somebody decided that was the dress, most likely the bride. And the agile team, they may select to be matchy, but not exactly the same. To to pick the outfit that fits them best, not just be all the same. Just my idea. Uh, the project charter is your authorization for the project to exist. Here we have a process for charters, and we're working on upgrading that process. But a lot of it is you just need the authority before you get into the planning stage and do all the preparation and in-depth requirements analysis. So you may have there may be a lot of questions still outstanding at the point where you create the charter. In requirements, usually there are three types of requirements I wanted to talk about today. Um, we always like to get the business requirements first. It's the high level needs of the business, what it is they need, not so much exactly how it's going to work, but what are they really trying to accomplish. And then from that, we can go into the functional requirements. What does this product have to do? What are its features? How is it going to work? And then there's the technical requirements that is more about how this will be achieved. Dive into the what fields do we need, or uh, what do we need to integrate with. So so that's kind of the three levels that we tend to look for on the IT projects that I work on. On an agile side, you would have user stories. It's more of a conversation. It's as a type of user, like as a plumber, I want to be able to, I want to be able to select tools so that I can fix faucets. That's probably a rough example, but it's a more conversational type of requirement gathering. When it comes to schedules, I like to say believe in miracles, but don't schedule them. I keep having to say that because sometimes I think I still schedule miracles, but I always think it's good to keep in mind that there are a lot of things that you need to plan for, and plan for things not to always go perfectly or in the minimum amount of time. Basically, a project schedule is a model. It links activities in an expected order. Um, Not necessarily that they are always performed in that specific order, but it's the order we expect them to be performed in. It'll have planned dates, durations, and what resources are assigned. It should be based on your requirements and the steps in your process to get through uh, your methodology. It would be developed with input from the team, your vendors, and others. But you need input from the team to know how long do you expect this might take you, or what are some of the tasks that need to be included. Project schedules should be communicated frequently so that others so that the team knows what to expect. A schedule can be represented as simply as an Excel spreadsheet, or it could be as complex as a resource leveled schedule, like for our nuclear power unit, which is built through a major software. Um, when we built the plan that back when I was planning my wedding, uh, it actually took us some automation to put that schedule together. If we had printed all the schedule, which we did print a good bit of the Gantt chart, I think we could have papered the side of the reactor with that. Um, we also printed reports, which were a few catalogs deep. It was always kind of interesting because the project, you'd see the project managers for that plant using that report, and they knew just about how deep in the report to open it. Now today they would have something online, but back then it was quick for them to walk through the project office and get to that. So so in Agile we have sprints. That would be a time boxed effort. Usually it would be a standard length of time, like 2, 3, 4 weeks, and the uh, the team would have specific user stories that have been selected. Now they've given them a rating as to how difficult they are, usually using a numeric um, rather than using a time. And so they would go for how many points of those numerics that they can take in for that. And it takes them a while to build a cadence to be able to know that uh, in 4 weeks I can do this much work. So they've sized things from a backlog, and there's some prioritization and selection process to determine which things go in each sprint. So the Scrum team itself determines the assignments. They'll have daily stand-up meetings, as we talked about before, where they'll talk about accomplishment, what's to be accomplished, and what uh, issues they may have that they need help with. At the end of the sprint, the product's demonstrated, because what they're going for is something that could be used immediately. Uh, doesn't always It's not always designed that way, but one of the ideas is a way to get some of the benefit of the project early on. So when they go through the demonstration, um, either the uh, business owner, product owner will approve, and they can move on with the next sprint. There may be things that didn't get completed in the sprint, and it's a decision on each one of those things whether those will go into the next sprint. It's not automatic. They may put it back on the shelf and back into the backlog, or they may add it to the next. And then there's vendor management. Most of my vendors are a little nicer than these monkeys, but um, for your working with your vendors, you want to provide clear communication. Make sure you get expectations in writing, a defined scope of work, service level expectations. So basically, what do I expect after the project's completed, after we've worked with you, the products you provide? If it ceases to work, what are my recourse, or what will you provide me back to heal my issues? And be approachable. People skills are important in vendor management. Uh, you want people to want to tell you and want to talk to you. Then cost ex, ex, track expenditures. I know on the wedding I attracted expenditures, and um, I kept my price pretty low. I was pretty proud of what I was able to do with that budget. And so sometimes it may not be clear what your budget is. So that's something to work with your management on. If they give you a project and don't tell you what you've got to spend, you'll want to track that down. Uh, Reserve funding for contingency. You may have to pay for additional services or extend project, or just have that plan. Know your procurement or purchasing rules and process. Uh, some organizations have, like I'm with city government, so there are some specific things that I need to know. I need to know that if I need to spend over $50,000, that I'm going to need to take that to the city council for approval. So there may be some other checks and balances that have to go through my procurement or purchasing organization. So you'll also want to maintain the quotes, purchase orders, invoices, and payment information, because there's frequently questions that'll come up later. Um, you'll track your budget, but you'll also want to be able to easily find these items, because you'll get questions about it. And talking about change management, often that's discussed as the process by which you change the requirements, scope, or timeline on your project. But that's more like project change control. Change management is really preparing uh, individuals, groups, and organizations for the move to the future state, to to realize realize the benefits of the product that we're producing. So this would be part of your communications plan, is how to get the word out to those people who are going to benefit from the project or have their work changed based on it. Also includes training. So how are you going to train? How are you going to roll that training out? It can be almost a project in itself. Then for project closing, which means I'm getting closer to closing, some of the tools that I use is a project acceptance sign off. Basically tells the project, gets agreement from the project sponsors that the project is complete, that it's ended. If there are any remaining work that was not completed as part of the project, how that will be transitioned. That could be transitioned to operations or some other process that works in your organization. And then those lessons learned that we've documented. It's good to have a gathering with your team to talk about what did and didn't go that well on a project, and um, get their input and have that available so that they can look back at it in the future. It's also a good time to recognize a team. Hopefully you've thanked them all the way through the project, but a good celebration, a party, a luncheon, a token is always a good way to wrap up a big project. So, lessons learned from the wedding. Several times I think we have said, write it down. The priest lost the reading selections on the day of the wedding. So, being waiting for the wedding to start, one of the groomsmen showed up with a book and said, "Could you pick out the readings that you had again?" Being such a calm bride, I naturally blamed it on my husband-to-be, which he had nothing to do with it, but calmed down quickly and was able to come up with those again. But if I'd had a list, it would have been a lot easier. Then there's getting those vendor agreements in writing. My DJ for the reception was a friend of mine. At least I thought so. Um, but when I went to write him the check on the way out, he said, no, that wasn't it. And he essentially doubled his price. He was still pretty cheap, so I didn't get too upset about it. But you think you know. And then one of my favorites is turn off the car. We had a limo that a friend a friend of the family was going to take this Mercedes limo and ferret us from the church to the reception. And they wanted to make sure that it was cool in the car because we're in Texas and it was June, late June, and it gets very hot. So they thought, we'll keep this car very cool. However, they started the car the same time the wedding started. This was a Catholic Mass. This went basically an hour with 20 minutes of photographs afterwards. So naturally, the car died. It didn't run out of gas, it just plain died. So for our mitigating strategy, we caught a ride in, I believe it was a Bentley. It was another nice vehicle, maybe not quite the same as the nice cool ride with the champagne in the back, which I believe the friend proceeded to enjoy while he waited for a tow truck. Um, as for documenting lessons learned in the business setting, this is kind of a format I like to use. I've got my project success and accomplishment. What were the actions we took that led to that success? What were the situations that contributed to that success? What factors were there and then recommendations is what would we do in another project going forward that would help us have that same kind of success in the next project. And then there's issues and shortcomings. So the actions, or what actions did we take to remediate that issue? And what were the situations that led to that issue? And then recommendations. What would we do differently to avoid that issue again? I wanted to quickly go over project management principles. This comes from the PMBOK 7th edition. If you are able to get a copy, you have to be a PMI member, I believe, to get it. But it is very much more people-centric than prior PMBOK editions. Everything that was in the other previous editions is still valid, but it is a little stronger toward the human element. So it talks about having respect and engaging with your team, having a collaborative team, focus on value, respond to system interactions, leadership behaviors, tailoring, dealing with complexity, optimizing your response to risk, being adaptable and resilient, enabling change. You may need to make some changes in what you planned in the beginning to achieve the success you want in the future state. And of course, building quality into the processes and your deliverables. Wanted to cover briefly, you may not be able to read these slides that well, but a few of the certifications available from PMI. the most popular would be the PMP. That's the one that is most sought after in project management. If you're starting out and wanting to get into project management, the CAPM is a good way to start. Um, Basically, uh, you do some training hours, and um, there's a test and there's a fee, and then to maintain that, there education units that you have to get, the 15 over 3 years, where the PMP is 60 over 3 years. And there's also renewal fees. All things are cheaper if you are a member of PMI. There are a couple of others that I wanted to point out, because what you're seeing on this slide for project management is not the limit of what they have, but they also have a business analyst certification. IIBA has one as well, but this is relatively new in PMI. And then we also have the program management certification, and that one is I think for the top of the rung project managers that aren't just managing projects, but full portfolios of projects. And then PMI also has Agile certifications. They have the Agile Certified Practitioner, a Discipline Agile Scrum Master, and then the Senior Scrum Master. And I duplicated the project management, the program management professional. But if you can get a copy of the slides, and I'd be glad to send it, you can get an idea what the requirements are. Typically, education, some hours of training in project management or agile, and then the test. It's interesting how much these tests vary in length and number of questions, and then the cost for those, and the renewal requirements. Also for Agile, there's Scrum Alliance. I actually have the Certified Scrum Master from Scrum Alliance. For most of theirs, you take a 14 to 16 hour course from a certified instructor. Instructor costs, they vary what it may cost, and then there's some education units that are required for renewal and a fee. So the higher you go in the more in-depth certification, there's more education and a little higher fee. A little carried away there. My sources for this presentation, besides my own input, is PMI.org, ScrumAlliance.org, the PMBOK Guide, 7th edition, and the PMBOK Guide, 6th edition, which includes Agile Practice Guide, and the cartoons that you see were used with permission from Dick Collier, as editorial cartoons for the Fort Worth Star Telegram, and my husband. So got the groom involved in the presentation. So that concludes what I had to present. There may be some questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Diane. Wonderful presentation, and oh, actually, I'll pull that back up for a moment so that folks can get your contact information as well. If anyone has any follow-ups, can reach out to Diane at her email address there. And we do have some questions, or one question so far from the audience. I'll remind everyone, if you have additional questions as well, you can post those in the chat or the comment section, and we'll get them here and can bring them up. But we'll start with this one from someone on LinkedIn. They asked partway through the presentation there, what is the percentage of success on waterfall versus agile?
That's a good question. Um, I can't honestly tell you that I've see a have seen a particular percentage outlined. I know that question is probably out there in Google World. From my perspective, um, as far as getting code out there, um, I've seen both work very well. Now, what I've seen probably work best is maybe a, a phased approach, because you'll hear people say that they're agile, but they're doing some things from agile. It may not be full agile, but there's you could do like mini waterfall, and effectively agile is in a way like that, because you go through all the steps. You just go through them quickly. Um,
Okay,
but I don't have a percentage for that. I haven't had that many projects fail, so for me it's pretty high. I mean, for both. I've had a
great.
couple.
Well, always bound to be a few here and there for sure, but
Yeah.
that's great to hear. Um, so while we're waiting, if any additional comments come through, I had a question I was thinking about. With your experience you've had in your career now, um, for project management, is there anything you would have done differently for the wedding side of things? Um, if you could have gone back and done it differently, or would you do everything the same? It sounds like you had pretty good solutions, even
Um,
at the time.
there are a couple of things I would have done differently. Um, if you notice that that nearly white dress that my mother-in-law wore,
Oh,
that
right.
bothered me. That bothered me for a long time. I think I could have
Mm,
worked with her on that on those concessions. Um, Another thing, I would have kept more of the information on the some of the things we decided on, like the readings, and had a little more logistic communication. I think we could have done quite a bit more communication. Funny story: the day of the wedding, you have your rehearsal the night before, and then the day of the wedding, my father was like, "It all went so fast. I don't remember what I need to do." And
mm,
I was able to just calmly tell him, "There's no way you can mess up. There's absolutely no way.
sure.
We're going to guide you through this, and there's, just be confident that this is what we're going to do, and it's going to be easy." So, so I think that that helped both of us have a beautiful day.
Uh, Excellent. Well, I'm glad that that worked out well. This might be the same person on LinkedIn saying the IT industry adopts more of agile, energy industry adopts more of waterfall, but these days they're both trying to adopt both, like you had mentioned there. So sounds like both good options, perhaps.
Yep. And depending on the project, I wouldn't expect any of the industries to do all of them one way.
Hmm,
There, you know, uh, there is a way to use Agile outside of IT. Um, might not be my specific choice. I do like Agile for delivering delivering code fast. Uh,
sure.
when you say users don't know what they want, well, how could they? They have a concept, but once you see something, you really have a better idea how this is going to work for you. So that's part of the beauty of Agile, is to be able to see something quick.
All right, excellent. Well, I don't see any further questions here in the chat at the moment, but as a reminder there, if anyone has any further questions, you can always reach out to Diane at her email address there. Also, this full presentation will be archived. You can watch it again or share it with your friends or colleagues by going to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/IEEE and it'll also be available on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and updates. Certainly when we have additional upcoming presentations, you can find that there, or go to our website, IEEEUSA.org, and find that information there. So with that, I'll thank you again very much, Diane, for your presentation today. I certainly learned a lot, and appreciate our audience members for all tuning in as well.
And thank you all very much for having me.